aviation sets the pace in 1938. Our world becomes suddenly smaller as Howard Hughes circles the globe in less than 91 hours.
Speed was an end in itself. It was getting scary.
A tisket, a tasket, a brown and yellow basket.
In October, the land speed record was broken twice in 2 days.
For service that is tops and gas that's extra fine, there's a smile for every mile at the SO sign. E-S-S-O makes your car go. Happy motoring.
You could feed your new LaSalle or your Buick for 10 cents a gallon. For nothing, on the car radio, you got war scares.
Has definitely rejected the Hitler memorandum.
The story was radio's big event, the biggest thing on radio, the longest running thing on radio. People seem to be listening almost around the clock, and it was well established that radio was a medium to be reckoned with, and certainly the fastest news medium in the world.
We learned instantly from radio that Hitler would be awarded the Sudetenland in return for his promise to take no more. Appeasement. But Hitler didn't act appeased.
Mussolini did most to persuade Hitler that he ought to give more time and take things more slowly. And Hitler was disgruntled. The next morning when we went to see him after the agreement, I thought he was one of the crudest, rudest human specimens I'd ever seen. Nasty, thoroughly nasty bit of work, and in a very bad temper, because he'd hoped by then to be in Czechoslovakia.
Chamberlain, apprehensive about being labeled an appeaser, persuaded Hitler to sign a promise that Germany and Britain would not go to war.
Hitler signed it, rather suspiciously quickly, I thought, but he did sign it. And Chamberlain thereupon made up his mind to give that the maximum publicity when he got home.
And the Prime Minister comes home, home to an empire filled with joy and relief, home to a welcome that he will never forget.
When he got back, he waved it around and said, "This is what Hitler signed."
Some of you perhaps have already heard what it contains. We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
Czechoslovakia may have hated Chamberlain for agreeing to its dismemberment, but he had avoided war, and at home he was a hero.
There was the most enormous crowd. I got separated from Chamberlain by about 4 steps. I was about 5 steps behind, I suppose. And as he went up the stairs, I heard a voice say to him, a man say to him, I couldn't see who it was, "Oh, Neville, go up to the window and repeat the famous historic phrase, peace with honor." And Chamberlain turned to whoever it was very snappily, and he said, "No, I don't do that kind of thing."
But charged with emotion, Chamberlain did that kind of thing. Told the crowd that there had come back from Germany peace with honor. Peace for our time, he said. Words that have lived in infamy.
And of course he knew it was a fatal mistake from the moment he'd said it. He felt he'd done his best, and was therefore gratified at the reception. And for that 1 second at the window, allowed it to affect his judgment. It was very, very unlucky for him.
One day later, Germany swallowed the Sudetenland as agreed. Soon it would be all of Czechoslovakia. Halloween was 1 month away. And in Europe, the hobgoblins were real.
Meanwhile, the next batch of war bulletins to threaten this country come not from Munich, but from Mars. Come back to the night before Halloween, 1938. A perfect night for a war of the worlds.
Our World continues in a moment.
Arnold, why hasn't this package been picked up?
You call him. I already called him 10 times.
Hold it. If you'd called Federal Express, you wouldn't be having this problem. Come with me. Only Federal trucks have onboard computers. So our couriers know the instant you have a package for pickup.
Aha!
So we can pick it up on time.
Aha!
Next time, call Federal Express. Why fool around with anyone else?
I will call Federal, and then I'll get you off my back and everybody else off my back.
Warm, you know it's so warm. I'd like a little more, so won't you please make it warm. Make it warm.
There's a lot of warm in instant Quaker oatmeal.
Every day at 7 a.m., over 6 million people wake up ready to battle plaque, armed with Listerine. Listerine reduces plaque by up to 50% over brushing alone. For better oral hygiene, fight the battle against plaque and bad breath with Listerine.
All of these cough syrups treat a cough with exactly the same ingredient. Only Benylin has the powerful cough suppressant diphenhydramine, recommended by doctors for over 30 years. Benylin, our strength is your relief.
Welcome back to the night before Halloween, 1938. A night many of us thought was our last on Earth. In 1898, H.G. Wells wrote a book called War of the Worlds. Spaceships landed in the English countryside. Creatures from Mars got out and started incinerating people with heat rays. It was all pretty silly. But in 1938, when it looked as if creatures called Nazis would soon be incinerating Europe, and when so much was going on in this crazy mixed-up world that we didn't understand, it didn't seem quite so silly, especially on Halloween.
H.G. Wells was popular, but it wasn't until Orson Welles turned his imagination loose on H.G. that it made headlines in every paper in the country. What did he do? Well, according to the New York Tribune of November 2nd, 1938, what Orson Welles did on October 30th was to prove that a few effective voices, accompanied by sound effects, can so convince masses of people of a totally unreasonable, completely fantastic proposition as to create a nationwide panic. I can say it quicker. What Orson Welles did was to prove once more that it's not the story, but the storytelling. It wasn't what was told, it was how it was told and where. It was told on radio. Welles at the time was 23 years old. He made the cover of Time magazine for playing an octogenarian in Shaw's Heartbreak House. Just your average actor. Just your average genius.
The radio was believed in America. That was a voice from heaven, you see. And I wanted to destroy that as dramatically as possible. And that was the purpose of this sort of huge practical joke, which was much bigger than we expected to be.
Radio broadcasting and its temple, New York City, were as frenzied then as they are now. Just a week before the Martian hoax, the Mercury Players had no script for Halloween. Wells' assistant, Richard Barr, was 21 and worked for nothing. He delivered the first version of the script.
He threw it back at us. He said it was the worst show we had ever done, and he was furious with Houseman and Howard Koch, who had written it.
Orson said, I want it done in first person singular. I want it done with news bulletin in the first part, and contemporary. It was the process in the works right up to the last minute.
Wells thrived on chaos. The others survived it. John Houseman was his co-producer and fellow hoaxmaster.
That was very largely Orson's method of production, which was that you created a state of total despair and confusion, and then at the very last moment, out of this came a perfect show.
And now, Orson Welles stars in the Mercury Theater on the Air production of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells.
After the introductions, listeners heard, not actors, but dance music.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the Meridian Room in the Park Plaza Hotel in New York City, we bring you the music of Raymond Raquello and his orchestra. With a touch of the Spanish, Raymond Raquello leads off with La Comparsita.
Listening in Chicago was a teenager looking for some background music to accompany homework. Steve Allen.
I just flipped around the dial at random and selected some dance music. All I heard of at first was the dance music, which was quickly interrupted by what appeared to be an authentic news bulletin.